Chapter 1. The Ritual of Blood and Bone. The bonfire roared against the midnight sky, casting writhing shadows across the ancient stone circle. Lena Thorne pressed herself against the rough bark of an oak tree, her breath coming in shallow gasps that fogged in the freezing air. She shouldn't be here. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to forget what she'd seen, to pretend the strange invitation slipped under her apartment door 3 days ago had never existed. Come to the Blackwood Forest on the winter solstice. Your presence is required. The debt must be paid. No signature, no explanation. Just an address and a date that happened to fall on the anniversary of her sister's disappearance 5 years ago. Lena had told herself she wouldn't come. She'd burned the letter in her kitchen sink, watched the edges curl and blacken. But the next morning, another had appeared. And another. Each one more insistent, until the final message arrived with a single dried wolfsbane flower and words that made her blood run cold. She's waiting for you to save her. Now, crouched in the darkness beyond the firelight, Lena watched as figures in dark cloaks moved in a synchronized dance around the flames. At least 30 of them. Maybe more, their faces hidden beneath deep hoods. In the center of the circle, bound to a stone altar with silver chains, was a girl who couldn't have been more than 19. The girl's terrified whimpers carried on the wind, and something in Lena's chest cracked open. It wasn't her sister. This girl had dark hair where Maya's had been blonde, bronze skin instead of pale. But the fear in her eyes was identical. That same trapped animal look Maya had worn the last time Lena saw her, right before she'd run into these very woods and never returned. The Omega offering must be pure, a voice boomed across the clearing. The speaker stepped forward, and even from her hiding spot, Lena could feel the power radiating from him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that demanded attention. His hood fell back, revealing sharp features, a strong jaw, and eyes that gleamed amber in the firelight. Tonight, under the solstice moon, the Alpha King will claim his mate and seal the pack's protection for another century. The chanting grew louder. The bound girl thrashed against her chains, and Lena saw blood begin to seep where the silver bit into her wrists. Do something, a voice whispered in Lena's mind. Don't let another girl die because you were too afraid. Her legs moved before her brain could catch up. She burst from the tree line, stumbling over roots and stones as she ran toward the circle. Stop! Let her go! The chanting ceased instantly. 30 hooded heads turned toward her in perfect unison, and the silence that fell was more terrifying than any scream. The broad-shouldered man's eyes locked onto Lena, and she felt the impact of his gaze like a physical blow. Those amber eyes widened with something that looked almost like recognition? Impossible. She'd never seen this man before in her life. Who dares interrupt the ritual of claiming? His voice was different now, deeper, tinged with something animalistic that made the hair on Lena's arms stand up. I dare. Lena forced herself to keep walking forward, even though every cell in her body screamed danger. I don't know what kind of cult this is, but you can't just tie up a girl and... Cult? The man laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that what you think this is? The cloaked figures began to move, closing in around Lena in a tightening circle. She spun, trying to keep them all in view, her heart hammering against her ribs. Kieran, an older woman's voice called out. The intruder must be dealt with. The ritual cannot proceed with an outsider present. Kieran, so that was his name. Lena filed it away as she frantically searched for an escape route. I know. Kieran moved closer, each step deliberate and predatory. But this outsider. He paused just feet away from her, and Lena could see the way his pupils had dilated, the way his nostrils flared as if he were scenting the air. She smells like moonlight and cedar, like the north wind, like... Like what? Lena demanded, trying to mask her fear with anger. Like someone who's calling the police, because that's exactly what I... Stop the ritual! The scream came from the altar. Everyone froze. The bound girl had managed to raise her head, her dark eyes fixed on Kieran with desperate intensity. Stop it, please. She's the one. Can't you smell it? She's your true mate, not me. Kieran's head snapped toward the altar, then back to Lena. His expression shifted through confusion, denial, and then, most terrifying of all, a fierce, possessive hunger that made Lena's knees go weak. No, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. That's impossible. The Omega was chosen. The prophecy said your mate would come to you under the solstice moon. The girl interrupted, her words tumbling out in a rush. It didn't say she'd be the one on the altar. Look at her. Really look. Lena didn't understand what was happening, but she understood opportunity. While Kieran stood frozen, visibly warring with himself, she darted toward the altar. Her fingers fumbled with the silver chains, and the moment she touched them, pain shot up her arms. Not from heat, but from a bone-deep cold that felt like it was freezing her from the inside out. Don't touch those! Kieran lunged forward, but it was too late. The chains shattered, not unlocked, shattered, exploding into glittering fragments that rained down like ice. The bound girl scrambled free, and Lena stumbled backward, staring at her own hands in shock. They were glowing with a faint silver light that pulsed in time with her racing heartbeat. What the hell? She whispered. Kieran had stopped mid-lunge, suspended in the air impossibly, his body bent in a hunter's crouch. But his eyes, those burning amber eyes, were locked on Lena with an intensity that stole her breath. Around them, the cloaked figures had fallen to their knees, heads bowed. The silver hand, someone murmured. The prophecy spoke true. Someone tell me what's going on. Lena's voice cracked. What did I just do? What are you people? Kieran slowly lowered himself to the ground, his movements careful, controlled. When he spoke, his voice was raw with barely contained emotion. You just broke an enchanted chain forged by the moon goddess herself. Something only a true mate to the Alpha King could do. He took a step closer. And we're not people, Lena Thorne. We're werewolves. And somehow, impossibly. His eyes flashed golden, and for just a moment, Lena saw the wolf lurking beneath his human skin. You're mine. Chapter 2. The mark of the moon Lena's world tilted sideways. Werewolves, she repeated, the word tasting absurd on her tongue even as the evidence stood before her. 30 figures who'd moved with inhuman synchronicity, chains that had frozen, her skin, and a man whose eyes literally glowed in the darkness. You're telling me werewolves are real? As real as the blood in your veins. Kieran's voice had dropped to something softer, almost gentle, as if he sensed how close she was to shattering. As real as the mark on your wrist? Lena looked down. Where the silver chain had touched her skin, a pattern had emerged. Delicate lines that resembled a crescent moon surrounded by stars, glowing with that same ethereal light. She touched it with trembling fingers, expecting pain, but felt only warmth. This isn't happening, she whispered. I came here to find my sister, that's all. I can't be your sister. Kieran's expression shifted, and something that might have been grief flickered across his features. Maya Thorne. She came to us 5 years ago on a night much like this one. Lena's head snapped up. You know Maya? Where is she? Is she alive? The silence that followed was answer enough. Lena felt the ground drop out from beneath her, felt 5 years of desperate hope crumble into dust. She'd known deep down that Maya was gone, but knowing and hearing it confirmed were two different kinds of agony. I'm sorry. And Kieran did sound genuinely sorry, his amber eyes softening with sympathy that looked too human for what he claimed to be. She stumbled into pack territory during a hunt. By the time we realized she was human, it was too late. The young wolves He stopped, jaw clenching. She didn't suffer. I made certain of that. You made certain. Lena's grief crystallized into rage. You're the Alpha King, aren't you? You're in charge of all this? She gestured wildly at the circle, the kneeling figures, the girl who was now being helped away by two women. My sister died because of your people. And now you're telling me I'm supposed to be your mate. Fate doesn't ask permission. Kieran's voice hardened, and Lena caught a glimpse of the predator beneath his controlled exterior. I didn't choose this any more than you did. The mate bond. I don't care about your mate bond, Lena's voice broke. I want my sister back. So do I. The confession seemed to surprise Kieran as much as it did Lena. He turned away, broad shoulders tense. Maya's death has haunted me for 5 years. I've replayed that night 1,000 times, wondering if I'd been faster, stronger, more alert. He stopped himself. It doesn't matter. What's done is done. Lena wanted to hate him. Should hate him. But there was something in his voice, a weight of responsibility and regret that resonated with her own guilt. How many times had she wondered if she'd been a better sister, if she'd paid more attention to Maya's fears, if she'd stopped her from running into these woods that night. Why did you send me those letters? She asked finally, pulling her jacket tighter against the cold. Why bring me here? I didn't. Kieran turned back to face her, confusion evident. What letters? Before Lena could respond, the older woman who'd spoken earlier stepped forward. She pulled back her hood, revealing silver hair braided with feathers and a face lined with years of wisdom. I sent them, Alpha. Cordelia. Kieran's tone held a warning. Explain. The prophecy has been clear for centuries, Cordelia said, her dark eyes moving between Kieran and Lena. When the Alpha King reaches his 30th year without finding his true mate, he must perform the ritual of claiming or lose his connection to the pack forever. We chose Serena as the Omega offering because she was willing, and we hoped, the ritual would forge a bond. She looked at Lena with something like reverence. But the moon goddess had other plans. You used my dead sister as bait. Lena's voice was cold. I used your grief as a compass, Cordelia corrected. Maya spoke of you in her final moments, about how much she loved you, how sorry she was for running away. Her last wish was that you find peace. The older woman's expression softened. When I saw the mark the moon goddess had placed on you in my visions, a mark identical to the one you now bear, I knew you were meant to stand at Kieran's side. I knew you were the one who could break the curse and save this pack. Curse? Lena looked at Kieran. What curse? Kieran's jaw worked, and for a long moment, Lena didn't think he'd answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. My father was Alpha King before me. He was a good leader, but a brutal man. When he died, the pack elders performed a blood ritual to ensure the next Alpha, me, would be stronger, more controlled, less prone to the rage that consumed him. He met Lena's eyes. But magic always demands a price. The ritual bound my wolf so tightly that I'm incomplete. I can shift, but barely. I can lead, but without the full strength of my wolf, I'm vulnerable. The pack is vulnerable. And finding your mate is supposed to fix this? Lena asked. The true mate bond is the most powerful magic in our world, Cordelia interjected. It can break curses, heal wounds that should be fatal, even bring wolves back from the edge of feral madness. When an alpha finds his true mate, his wolf becomes whole. Lena looked at the mark on her wrist, then at Kieran, this dangerous, damaged man who claimed she was destined to save him. Everything in her screamed to run, to get as far from this supernatural nightmare as possible. But Maya's last wish had been for Lena to find peace. And strangely, impossibly, standing in this circle of werewolves with a glowing mark on her skin, and an Alpha King staring at her like she was his salvation. Lena felt something she hadn't experienced in 5 years. She felt like she'd finally found where she was supposed to be. "I need time," she said finally. "To think, to process all of this." Kieran nodded slowly. "I'll have Cordelia prepare a cabin for you. You're free to leave whenever you choose, but..." "Lena..." He stepped closer and Lena caught his scent. Pine and smoke and something wild. "Don't take too long. The mate bond once awakened demands acknowledgement. And there are others who would use our connection against us both." "Others?" His smile was sharp and utterly without humor. "Every pack has enemies. And a weak Alpha King. With an unclaimed human mate? That's blood in the water." Chapter 3. Shadows in the Pines. The cabin Cordelia led her to was deeper in the forest than Lena had ever ventured, tucked into a grove of ancient pines that seemed to lean protectively over the small structure. Despite the rustic exterior, the interior was surprisingly comfortable. A stone fireplace already crackling with warmth, thick rugs covering dark wood floors, and a bed piled high with quilts that looked handmade. "You'll be safe here," Cordelia said, lighting oil lamps that cast dancing shadows across the walls. "The Alpha has placed guards around the perimeter. No one will disturb you unless you call for them." "Guards or jailers?" Lena asked, unable to keep the edge from her voice. Cordelia's lips curved into a knowing smile. "That depends on your perspective, I suppose. But truly, child, you're not a prisoner. Kieran doesn't want you here against your will." She paused at the door, though I suspect you'll find leaving more difficult than you imagine. "Because of the mate bond. Because of what your heart already knows, even if your mind refuses to accept it yet." Cordelia's dark eyes gleamed in the lamplight. "Rest now. Everything will look different in the morning." After the older woman left, Lena sank onto the edge of the bed, her mind spinning. The mark on her wrist had stopped glowing but remained visible, a permanent reminder of how completely her world had shifted in the span of an hour. She traced the crescent moon with one finger, remembering the way Kieran's eyes had locked onto it, the hunger and longing in his expression. "You're mine." The possessiveness in those words should have terrified her. Instead, she felt an answering pull deep in her chest, like a string tied around her heart was being gently tugged towards something, someone, outside these cabin walls. She pressed her palm against her sternum, trying to calm her racing pulse. This wasn't real. Couldn't be real. Werewolves and fate and magical bonds. These were things from books and movies, not her carefully ordered life as a research librarian in Seattle. She had an apartment, a job, a routine. She had normal problems like student, loans and a leaky faucet and a mother who called too often, asking when she'd start dating again, except she didn't have Maya. And she'd never had answers about what had happened that night, 5 years ago, until now. Lena pulled out her phone, unsurprised to find no signal this deep in the forest. She stared at her last text exchange with her mother from 3 days ago, going camping for the weekend. "Need some time to clear my head." Her mother's response, "Be safe, sweetheart. And maybe while you're clearing your head, you can think about moving forward. Maya wouldn't want you stuck in the past. But what if the past had found her instead?" A howl split the night, long, mournful, and far too close. Lena jumped to her feet, her heart hammering. Another howl answered the first, then another, until the forest echoed with a chorus of wild voices that should have sent her diving under the bed. Instead, she found herself drawn to the window. The moon had risen higher, nearly full, painting the forest in silver light. Between the trees, she saw them. Wolves, dozens of them, their eyes reflecting the moonlight in shades of gold and amber and green. They were massive, far larger than any natural wolf, their movements graceful and purposeful as they wove through the pines. One wolf stood apart from the others, positioned closest to the cabin. Even in wolf form, Lena recognized him, something about the way he held himself, the authority in his posture, the amber eyes that found her window as if he'd known she'd be watching. Kieran. Their eyes met across the distance, and Lena felt that pull again, stronger now, insistent. Her hand lifted to press against the cold glass, and she saw his ears prick forward, his massive head tilt slightly, as if he could sense her through the walls. This is insane, she thought. I should be running, screaming, calling for help. But who would help? Who would believe her? And if she was being honest with herself, some part of her, a part she'd kept locked away since Maya's death, didn't want to run. That part wanted to understand, wanted to know why her sister had been drawn to these woods, why fate had marked Lena's wrist with silver, why standing here watching a werewolf who claimed to be her destined mate felt less like danger and more like coming home. A knock at the door shattered the moment. Lena spun, her breath catching, but the voice that called out was female and young. Miss Thorne? It's Serena, the girl from the altar? May I come in? Lena hesitated, then crossed to open the door. Serena stood on the threshold, wrapped in a thick cloak, her dark hair still damp from what must have been a hurried washing. Up close, she looked even younger than Lena had thought, barely out of her teens, with delicate features and eyes that held too much knowledge for someone so young. I wanted to thank you, Serena said quietly, for saving me tonight. I'm not sure I saved anyone, Lena replied, stepping back to let the girl inside. I might have just made everything worse. You broke the chains. Serena's voice held wonder. Do you know how powerful you have to be to shatter silver blessed by the moon goddess herself? The elders have been whispering about it all night. They're saying you're the strongest Luna our pack has seen in generations. Luna? The Alpha's mate. The female leader of the pack. Serena settled onto the chair by the fireplace, pulling her cloak tighter. I know this must be overwhelming for you. Trust me, I understand. I was born into this world, and it still terrifies me sometimes. Lena sat across from her. Were you really willing to be part of that ritual? To be claimed? Serena's expression grew complicated. Willing might be a strong word, but when you're an Omega, the lowest rank in the pack hierarchy, you learn that sacrifice is sometimes necessary. The Alpha needed a mate to break his curse. I thought if I could help, maybe I'd finally have value beyond being the weakest link. That's horrible, Lena said softly. That's pack law. Serena shrugged, but her eyes betrayed her hurt. Omegas serve. Alphas lead. It's been that way for centuries. Well, maybe it's time things changed. Serena looked up, startled, and something like hope flickered across her face. You sound like Maya. She used to say things like that. Question the old ways. Push back against traditions she thought were unfair. Her expression softened with memory. She was kind to me. One of the only ones who treated me like a person instead of a burden. Lena's throat tightened. She was always good at seeing people others overlooked. She talked about you constantly, Serena continued. How smart you were, how brave, how you'd always protected her when you were kids. The girl leaned forward. She'd be happy, I think. That you're here, that you might be the one to change things. I'm not here to change anything, Lena protested. I just wanted answers about Maya. And now you have them. Serena stood, moving toward the door. The question is, what will you do with them? Will you run back to your human life and pretend none of this exists? Or will you stay and discover who you're truly meant to be? After Serena left, Lena returned to the window. The wolves were still there, but Kieran had moved closer. Even in the darkness, she could feel the weight of his gaze, the question in those amber eyes. Stay or run? Choose quickly. Her mark pulsed with warmth, and Lena knew whatever choice she made would change everything. Chapter 4. The Alpha's burden Lena didn't sleep. She lay in the unfamiliar bed watching moonlight crawl across the ceiling, listening to the forest breathe around her. Every creak of wood, every rustle of leaves made her hyper-aware that she was surrounded by creatures that shouldn't exist. Creatures that could tear her apart with barely a thought. Yet the fear she expected never fully materialized. Instead, she felt watched, protected, as if those amber eyes from the forest had wrapped an invisible shield around the cabin. When dawn finally crept through the windows, painting everything in shades of rose and gold, Lena gave up on rest. She dressed in yesterday's clothes, jeans and a sweater that smelled like bonfire smoke, and ventured outside. The guards Cordelia had mentioned were obvious now in daylight. 2 men stood at the edge of the clearing, both broad-shouldered and alert. They nodded respectfully as she emerged, but made no move to stop her from walking toward the forest path. She'd barely taken a dozen steps when a figure materialized from between the trees. Kieran looked different in daylight. More human, less otherworldly, though no less imposing. He'd changed from the ritual clothes into dark jeans and a Henley that stretched across his chest, his dark hair still damp as if he'd recently showered. But it was his eyes that caught her. Those amber depths that held exhaustion, and something that might have been vulnerability. "You didn't sleep either," Lena observed. "Alphas don't sleep when their mate is near but unclaimed." His voice was rough with fatigue. "The wolf becomes restless. That must be inconvenient." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You have no idea." He gestured toward the path. "Walk with me? There's something I want to show you." Every rational instinct told Lena to refuse, to stay in the clearing where the guards could see them. But she found herself nodding, falling into step beside him as they moved deeper into the woods. They walked in silence for several minutes, the only sounds their footsteps on the pine needle carpet and the morning birds greeting the day. Lena snuck glances at Kieran, noting the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands flexed at his sides as if restraining himself from reaching for her. "How old are you?" she asked finally, needing to break the charged silence. 30 as of last month. "You?" 28. She ducked under a low branch. "Cordelia said you had until your 30th year to find your mate. That's cutting it close." "I wasn't exactly looking." Kieran's tone held self-recrimination. "After what happened to your sister, I withdrew. Threw myself into pack business, into trying to strengthen what little connection I had to my wolf. I told myself the mate bond was just another burden I didn't need. And now?" He stopped walking, turning to face her fully. In the dappled morning light filtering through the pines, he looked almost vulnerable. "Now I realize I was lying to myself. The wolf always knew. It's why I could never fully shift, never fully connect to the pack. Part of me was always waiting, even when I didn't want to admit it. Waiting for me." Lena's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Waiting for you," he confirmed. "A human woman who should want nothing to do with us. With me." His jaw clenched. "I killed your sister, Lena. Maybe not with my own claws, but I'm responsible. I'm the alpha. Every pack member's actions fall on my shoulders. How can you even look at me without seeing Maya's blood on my hands?" The raw pain in his voice surprised her. This wasn't the commanding Alpha King from the ritual. This was a man carrying 5 years of guilt that mirrored her own. "Do you know why Maya ran into these woods that night?" Lena asked. Kieran shook his head. "We had a fight. A stupid, meaningless fight about her boyfriend, some guy I thought was bad news. I told her she was being reckless, that she always made terrible choices." Lena's throat tightened. She screamed that I wasn't her mother, that I needed to stop trying to control her life. Then she grabbed her keys and drove off. I assumed she'd go to a friend's house, cool down, come back in the morning. She met Kieran's gaze. Instead, she ended up here. And I spent 5 years wondering if my last words to her were what drove her into the woods that killed her. Lena. So when you ask how I can look at you without seeing her blood, she stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his amber eyes. I see the same thing I see in my own mirror every morning. Someone carrying guilt for a tragedy they couldn't prevent. Someone trying to do better, be better, even when it feels impossible. Kieran stared at her as if she'd just spoken in a language he'd never heard but somehow understood perfectly. Then, slowly, carefully, he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered against her cheek, and Lena felt heat bloom everywhere he touched. You're dangerous, he murmured. Me? You're the werewolf. Exactly. I could hurt you in 100 ways. But you? His thumb traced her jawline. You could destroy me with kindness, with understanding I don't deserve, with forgiveness I haven't earned. Maybe that's what the mate bond is, Lena said, her heart racing. Not about deserving, just about finding the person who understands your darkness because they have their own. For a moment, she thought he might kiss her. The air between them crackled with tension, his face lowering toward hers, his breath warm against her lips. But at the last second, he pulled back, his expression shuddering. Come, he said, his voice carefully neutral. We're almost there. They emerged into a clearing that took Lena's breath away. A small waterfall cascaded into a crystal-clear pool, surrounded by wildflowers that shouldn't bloom in late December. The air here felt different, charged with magic, ancient and powerful. This is sacred ground, Kieran explained, where the pack's founding members first shifted under the full moon 300 years ago. It's also where we honor those we've lost. He led her to the far side of the pool, where smooth river stones had been arranged in careful patterns. Each stone bore a name carved in elegant script. Kieran knelt beside one near the center, his fingers tracing letters Lena recognized before she could read them. Lena Thorne. May her spirit run free. Tears blurred Lena's vision. You made her a memorial. I come here every week, Kieran said quietly. To apologize, to promise I'll do better. To tell her about the pack, about changes I'm trying to make so no other innocent dies because we were careless. He looked up at Lena. And lately, I've been telling her about you. About the sister she loves so much. The one who never stopped looking for answers. Lena knelt beside him, placing her hand over Maya's stone. The mark on her wrist flared bright, and suddenly the air shimmered. For just a moment, impossible, beautiful, she saw Maya. Not as she'd been at the end, but younger, laughing, whole. Her sister smiled and mouthed words Lena felt more than heard. It's okay. Let go. Be happy. Then she was gone. Lena gasped, and Kieran caught her as she swayed. What did you see? Her, Lena breathed. I saw her. She told me. She couldn't finish, couldn't speak past the sob building in her chest. Kieran pulled her against him, and Lena let herself break. 5 years of grief poured out while he held her, this Alpha King, who was supposed to be her enemy, whispering words of comfort in a language she didn't understand, but that soothed something deep in her soul. When she finally pulled back, embarrassed by the wet spot on his shirt, he just smiled. A real smile this time. Soft and genuine. Feel better? Actually, yes. And she did. Lighter somehow. Free. Good. He stood, offering his hand. Because we need to head back. The Pack Council wants to meet you. And Lena? His expression turned serious. Some of them won't be happy about a human Luna. Things are about to get complicated. Chapter 5. The Council's Challenge. The pack house loomed before them like something from a Gothic novel. 3 stories of dark timber and stone, with windows that gleamed like watchful eyes. Wolves in human form lingered on the wraparound porch, their conversations dying as Kieran and Lena approached. She felt their stares like physical touches, assessing, judging, some curious and others openly hostile. Kieran's hand settled at the small of her back, a gesture both protective and possessive. Stay close to me, he murmured, and whatever happens in there, don't show fear. Wolves respect strength, even when I'm terrified, especially then, his lips quirked. Fake it until you make it, as you humans say. The interior was surprisingly warm. Exposed beams overhead, a massive stone fireplace, comfortable furniture arranged in conversation clusters. But the dozen people waiting in the great room killed any sense of coziness. They stood in a semicircle, ages ranging from a woman who looked barely older than Serena to a man whose silver hair and weathered face spoke of centuries, not mere decades. Alpha. The silver-haired man inclined his head, respect clear but not subservient. You bring the human before the council. I bring my mate before the council, Marcus. Kieran's voice carried an edge of warning. Show her the respect that position demands. Respect must be earned. This from a woman in her 40s with sharp features and sharper eyes. Not handed out because fate decided to play a cruel joke. Careful, Victoria. Kieran's tone dropped into something dangerous. You walk a thin line. Victoria's smile was cold. We all walk thin lines these days, don't we? You most of all. She turned to Lena. Tell me, human, what do you know of pack law? Of our ways? Of the responsibilities a Luna bears? Lena lifted her chin, channeling every ounce of confidence she didn't feel. I know that I broke chains blessed by your moon goddess. I know your alpha needs his mate to break his curse. And I know that according to your own beliefs, fate chose me for this role. Not you, not anyone else in this room. So, perhaps the question isn't what I know, but what you're willing to teach me. Surprised murmurs rippled through the council. Even Victoria's eyes widened slightly before narrowing again. Bold words, Marcus said, though he sounded more approving than critical. But words are wind. We've seen what happens when humans enter our world. They die, or they betray us, or they doom those they claim to love. Like Maya Thorne did? Lena's voice stayed steady despite the pain lancing through her chest. My sister didn't betray anyone. She stumbled into something she didn't understand and paid the ultimate price. If that's your idea of what happens when humans enter your world, maybe the problem isn't humans. It's how you treat them. The room went dead silent. Kieran's hand tightened almost imperceptibly on her back. Warning or support, she couldn't tell. Victoria moved forward, her movements predatory. You dare criticize us? You who've been here less than a day? Who knows nothing of our struggles, our sacrifices? I know about sacrifice. Lena held her ground even as Victoria invaded her space. I know about loss and grief and trying to protect people you love. Those things aren't unique to wolves. They're universal. And if you can't see that, then maybe you're not as evolved as you think. Enough. Kieran stepped between them, but before he could say more, a younger man spoke up from the back of the room. Let her prove herself. He was handsome in a dangerous way, with dark hair and eyes that glowed green rather than amber. The Luna trials. If she passes, the council acknowledges the bond. If she fails, he shrugged, then fate clearly made a mistake. The trials haven't been invoked in 70 years, Damien, Cordelia said from where she stood near the fireplace. They're designed for wolves, not humans. Then she'll have to rise to the occasion. Damien's smile was all teeth. Unless the alpha wants a mate the pack can't respect? A Luna too weak to lead? Lena felt Kieran's entire body tense. You overstep. Do I? Damien moved closer, and Lena caught the scent of challenge in the air, sharp and acrid. Or am I the only one brave enough to voice what everyone's thinking? The pack is vulnerable because you're cursed. You remain cursed because you haven't claimed your mate. But claiming a human who can't even shift, who has no connection to the wolf. He shook his head. That's not strength, that's desperation. Watch yourself, Beta. Kieran's voice had gone cold and lethal. Beta. So Damien was second in command, the one who would take over if Kieran failed. Lena's mind raced, seeing the political game playing out. Damien didn't just doubt her. He wanted Kieran to fail so he could seize control. I'll do the trials, Lena said clearly. Kieran spun to face her. Lena, no. You don't understand what you're agreeing to. Then explain it to me. She met his eyes, willing him to see her determination. But know this, I'm not running. Not from them, not from this challenge, and not from you. If I'm really your mate, if this mark means what everyone says it does, then I'll prove I deserve to stand beside you. Something fierce and proud blazed in Kieran's expression, but worry tempered it. The trials test physical endurance, mental fortitude, and spiritual connection to the pack. They're brutal even for born wolves. For a human, then I guess I'd better be extraordinary. Lena turned back to the council. When do we start? Marcus exchanged glances with the other elders before nodding slowly. Tomorrow at dawn. 3 trials, each designed to test a different aspect of what makes a true Luna. Pass all 3, and the council will acknowledge your bond with our Alpha. His expression grew grave. Fail even one, and you must leave Packlands forever. No second chances, no appeals. And if I'm injured during these trials, then you weren't strong enough to be Luna. Victoria's smile was cruel. Wolves heal. Humans break. That's simply nature. Victoria, Kieran began, but Lena cut him off. It's fine. I accept the terms. She extended her hand to Marcus. Do we have an agreement? The elder wolf stared at her outstretched hand for a long moment before taking it. His grip was firm, his palm rough with calluses. You're either very brave or very foolish, Lena Thorne. Maybe both. She smiled without humor. Seems to run in my family. As the council dispersed, still murmuring among themselves, Kieran pulled Lena aside into a smaller room lined with books and maps. His hands gripped her shoulders, his face inches from hers. What were you thinking? He demanded. The trials could kill you. So could leaving. Lena placed her hands over his. Kieran, I saw something in there. Damien wants your position. He's been waiting for you to fail, and he'll use me as the excuse to challenge you if I run. At least this way, I'm fighting back. You're fighting for me. I'm fighting for both of us. She took a breath, and maybe for Maya too. She died because your pack saw humans as lesser, as weak. I can't change what happened to her, but I can show them we're stronger than they think. Kieran's forehead dropped to rest against hers. You magnificent, terrifying woman. His voice was rough with emotion. How am I supposed to let you risk yourself when everything in me screams to protect you? By trusting that I'm strong enough to stand on my own. She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. And by helping me prepare. You have until dawn to turn me into someone who can survive your world. His expression shifted from worry to determination. Then we'd better get started. Because Lena, his thumb traced the mark on her wrist, sending shivers up her arm. I'm not losing you. Not to the trials, not to the council, and definitely not to Damien's ambition. You're mine, and I protect what's mine. The possessiveness should have annoyed her. Instead, it ignited something primal in her chest. A matching claim, a certainty that settled into her bones. Good, she whispered, because I'm not planning on losing you either. Chapter 6. Training and Temptation. Kieran led Lena through a maze of hallways to the back of the pack house, where a large training room sprawled beneath exposed beams. Weapons lined one wall, staffs, blades, even what looked like silver chains. Mats covered most of the floor, and the scent of sweat and determination hung in the air. The first trial tests physical endurance, Kieran explained, rolling up his sleeves. You'll face an obstacle course through the forest. Climbing, running, swimming in water cold enough to stop your heart. Most candidates train for months. We have 12 hours. Lena pulled off her jacket, revealing her slender frame. She'd never been particularly athletic. A few yoga classes, occasional jogging, nothing like what he was describing. So let's not waste time. For the next hour, Kieran pushed her through exercises that left her gasping and trembling. Rope climbs that tore at her palms, sprint intervals that burned her lungs, balance drills on narrow beams that had her falling repeatedly until her body was a constellation of bruises. Again, Kieran commanded after she tumbled off the beam for the 12th time. I can't, Lena started, but the look in his eyes stopped her. Can't isn't a word Lunas use. He moved closer, his voice softening. I know you're tired. I know it hurts, but tomorrow will be worse, and you won't have me there to catch you when you fall. She wanted to snap at him, to tell him this was impossible, but she saw the tension in his jaw, the way his hands flexed as if physically restraining himself from wrapping her in cotton and hiding her away. He hated this as much as she did, maybe more, but he was trusting her choice. So she climbed back on the beam. By the time they took a break, Lena's entire body screamed in protest. She collapsed on the mat, chest heaving, while Kieran pressed a water bottle into her hands. You're doing better than I expected, he admitted, sitting beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body, but carefully not touching. Liar. She drained half the bottle. I'm a disaster. You're determined. That counts for more than you think. He studied her face, and something in his expression made her breath catch. The second trial tests mental fortitude. They'll try to break you psychologically, show you visions of your worst fears, force you to relive painful memories. Maya's death will definitely be used against you. Lena's stomach dropped. That's cruel. That's survival. A Luna needs to be able to withstand psychological warfare, manipulation, threats. Our enemies won't play fair, so neither do the trials. He paused. I can help you build mental shields, teach you techniques to ground yourself when the visions come. But Lena, his voice roughened, they're going to hurt you in ways I can't prevent. Ways that will make me want to tear apart everyone in that council room. But you won't. She turned to face him fully, because that would prove I'm not strong enough. That I need you to fight my battles. Doesn't make it easier. His hand lifted, hovering near her face as if he didn't quite dare touch her. I've been Alpha for 8 years. Led hunts, fought challenges, made decisions that sent wolves to their deaths. I thought I understood what sacrifice meant. But watching you prepare to walk into danger for me, he shook his head. This is harder than anything I've ever done. Lena caught his hand, pressing his palm against her cheek. The contact sent electricity skating across her skin, and she felt his sharp intake of breath. Then we're even. Because trusting you, believing in this mate bond thing when everything rational tells me to run, that's the hardest thing I've ever done too. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Then Kieran's thumb traced her lower lip, his eyes darkening to molten amber. I should maintain distance. Keep things professional until after the trials. Should, Lena agreed, her voice barely above a whisper. But I'm finding that increasingly impossible. He leaned in slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. Tell me to stop. She should. This was too fast, too intense, too everything. But when his lips finally met hers, Lena stopped thinking altogether. The kiss was gentle at first, testing, questioning. But when she pressed closer, her fingers tangling in his dark hair, something unleashed in him. He pulled her into his lap, one hand cupping the back of her head while the other splayed across her lower back. The kiss deepened, turned hungry, desperate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her. Lena had been kissed before, but never like this. Never with this sense of rightness, of coming home to something she hadn't known she was searching for. The mate bond thrummed between them, her mark blazing warm against his chest, and she felt his wolf rising to meet her, protective and possessive and utterly devoted. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kieran rested his forehead against hers. That was completely inappropriate given we're supposed to be training, Lena finished, unable to stop smiling. I was going to say inevitable. His lips quirked. But yes, also inappropriate. He gently set her aside, standing and offering his hand. Come on, we still need to work on the third trial. What is that one test? Lena asked as he pulled her to her feet. Spiritual connection to the pack. Kieran's expression turned serious again. You'll enter a shared consciousness with the wolves. Feel their emotions, their thoughts, their memories. For born wolves, it's natural. For humans, he hesitated. There's only been one human Luna in our history. She survived the first 2 trials but went mad during the third. Couldn't handle the weight of so many minds pressing against hers. That's encouraging, Lena said dryly. I won't let that happen to you. Kieran led her to a circle painted on the floor in what looked like silver. The mark helps. It's already opened a channel between you and me. But you need to learn to control it. To shield yourself while still remaining open enough to prove your connection. He guided her to sit cross-legged in the center of the circle, then settled across from her. Close your eyes. Focus on your breathing. Now, feel for the bond between us. That string you mentioned earlier, the pull you've been trying to ignore. Lena followed his instructions, sinking into meditation. At first, she felt nothing beyond her own racing heartbeat. Then gradually she became aware of something else, a warmth that wasn't her own, a presence at the edges of her consciousness. Kieran. She sensed his worry for her, his fear of losing her before they'd even had a chance to begin. But beneath that, she felt something deeper, a fierce pride in her courage, a growing respect for her stubborn determination. And underneath everything, a longing so intense it stole her breath. He wanted her with every fiber of his being, wolf and man united in their certainty that she was his. Good. Kieran's voice seemed to come from both outside and inside her head. Now push further. Feel for the others. Lena extended her awareness, and suddenly she was drowning. A dozen voices. No, hundreds. All pressing against her mind at once. Anger, fear, curiosity, resentment. Wolves who'd lived centuries, wolves barely old enough to shift. Warriors and healers and mothers and hunters, all of them connected in a vast web that pulsed with life. Too much. It was too much. She gasped, trying to pull back. But the voices grew louder, more insistent. Someone was testing her, deliberately pushing harder, trying to break her concentration. She felt Kieran's alarm, felt him trying to shield her. But he was too far away, the distance between them growing. Look at me, Lena. Damien's voice cut through the chaos. Her eyes snapped open. The Beta stood at the edge of the circle, his green eyes glowing with power. Interesting. The bond is strong, but you're weak. Can't even handle a little pressure from the pack. He smiled coldly. Tomorrow's going to destroy you. Before Lena could respond, Kieran was moving. He'd shifted mid-lunge, his massive wolf form tackling Damien to the ground. The two males rolled, snarling, snapping, a whirlwind of fur and fury that had Lena scrambling backward. Stop, she shouted. Kieran, stop. But the wolves were locked in battle, and she realized with growing horror that this was exactly what Damien wanted. To provoke Kieran into losing control. To prove the Alpha was too unstable to lead. So Lena did the only thing she could think of. She stepped into the circle of teeth and claws, placed her marked hand on Kieran's massive head, and sent everything she felt through their bond. Trust, faith, certainty that he was more than his wolf, more than his rage. The effect was instantaneous. Kieran froze, then shifted back to human form, crouched over Damien with his hand around the Beta's throat. Chapter 7. Secrets in the Darkness. Damien wisely didn't respond, and after a tense moment, Kieran released him. The Beta rolled to his feet, brushing off his torn shirt, his green eyes calculating rather than cowed. Careful, Alpha, Damien said softly. The Council is watching. They'll wonder if you can lead objectively when your judgment is so clearly clouded by attachment. Get out. Kieran's voice was barely human. Damien inclined his head mockingly and left, but his parting glance at Lena promised this wasn't over. Once they were alone, Kieran turned to her, his chest still heaving. Are you hurt? I'm fine. You're the one who shifted in the middle of the pack house. Lena approached cautiously, noting the tremor in his hands. That took a lot of control to pull back. I almost didn't. He sank onto the mat, suddenly looking exhausted. That's the curse, Lena. My wolf is so tightly bound that when strong emotion breaks through, I lose the ability to shift smoothly. I either can't shift at all, or I shift and can barely maintain human thought. He looked at his hands as if they belonged to a stranger. But when you touched me, it was like you poured ice water on a fire. I could think again. The mate bond. More than that, he met her eyes. You anchored me, gave my wolf something to hold on to besides rage. His expression turned wonderstruck and terrified. Do you understand what that means? If completing the mate bond gives me that kind of control permanently, I could finally be the alpha this pack needs. No pressure then, Lena said lightly, trying to ease the intensity of the moment. But Kieran didn't smile. Everything is riding on you passing these trials. The pack's safety, my ability to lead, our future together. He stopped himself. I'm sorry, that's not fair to put on you. Hey. Lena knelt beside him, taking his face in her hands. I chose this, remember? No one forced me into that council room. No one made me accept the trials. Her thumbs traced his cheekbones. And maybe I'm doing this for selfish reasons too. Because despite everything, the danger, the impossibility, the fact that we barely know each other, I feel more alive with you than I have in 5 years. Kieran turned his head to press a kiss to her palm. We should rest. Dawn comes early. I'm too wired to sleep. Lena stood, pulling him up with her. Show me something else. Something that has nothing to do with trials or councils or curses. Show me your world when it's not trying to test or kill me. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Come with me. They left the pack house through a side entrance, Kieran leading her down a path she hadn't seen before. The forest was alive with night sounds, owls calling, small creatures rustling through undergrowth, and somewhere in the distance, wolves singing to the moon. That's the hunting pack, Kieran explained, noting her attention. They'll be out most of the night bringing down deer for tomorrow's feast. Feast? After the trials, regardless of outcome, the pack gathers. If you succeed, it's a celebration. If you fail... He left the sentence unfinished. They walked in comfortable silence until the trees opened onto a cliff, overlooking a valley painted silver by starlight. Below, Lena could see the forest stretching for miles, and in the distance, the glimmer of what might be a lake. This is where I come when being Alpha gets too heavy, Kieran said, settling on a flat rock. When I need to remember why I'm fighting so hard to protect all of this. Lena sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. Tell me about your father. About the curse. Kieran was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was distant with memory. My father, Aldrich, was a warrior Alpha. Strong, fierce, completely devoted to pack strength above all else. He believed weakness in any form had to be culled. Weak wolves, weak alliances, weak emotions. He picked up a stone, turning it over in his hands. My mother was his true mate, but she was gentle, kind. She tried to soften his edges, teach him that strength could include compassion. What happened to her? She died giving birth to my sister. The stone cracked in his grip. Aveline lived only 3 days. The healers said she was born with a weak heart, that nothing could have saved her. But my father... Kieran's jaw clenched. He saw it as proof that gentleness was weakness, that my mother's soft nature had somehow tainted their daughter. That's horrible, Lena breathed. He became worse after that, more brutal, more unforgiving. When I was 16, I challenged him during a pack meeting, questioned his order to execute a wolf who'd made it outside the pack. He was so enraged he nearly killed me in front of everyone. Kieran touched his side absently, and Lena saw the edge of a scar beneath his shirt. The pack elders intervened. They performed the binding ritual the next day, claiming it would prevent me from inheriting my father's rage when I became Alpha. But it did more than that. Much more. It didn't just dampen the rage. It severed most of my connection to my wolf. Made us strangers sharing the same body. He looked at her. My father died in a territorial dispute 2 years later. The elders said the binding kept me stable enough to lead, but every day I feel more disconnected, like I'm only half of what I should be. Lena took his hand, lacing their fingers together. You're more than your wolf, Kieran. The fact that you questioned your father's cruelty at 16, that you've spent 8 years trying to lead with both strength and compassion, that's who you are. The curse didn't create that. You did. You have a talent for saying things that make me want to kiss you, he murmured. So kiss me. This time when their lips met, it was slower, sweeter. A promise rather than a claiming. Kieran pulled her closer, his hand sliding into her hair, and Lena melted against him. The mark on her wrist pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, warm and right, and a howl split the night. Not the melodic hunting songs from before, but a sound of alarm, of warning. Kieran was on his feet instantly, his body tense. That's the Northern Patrol. Something's wrong. Before Lena could respond, a wolf burst from the trees, sleek and gray, with intelligent brown eyes. It shifted mid-stride, and suddenly Serena stood before them, naked and unconcerned by it, her expression frantic. Alpha. Rogues crossed the border. They're heading toward the pack house, toward Lena's cabin. She gasped for breath. There are at least a dozen. They're asking for the human Luna by name. Lena's blood turned to ice. How would rogues know about me? They wouldn't, unless someone told them. Kieran's face had gone hard, dangerous. His eyes flicked to Lena. Stay here with Serena. Don't you dare tell me to hide while you fight. Lena stood, surprising herself with her own steadiness. If they want me, I'm coming. Absolutely not. Kieran. She grabbed his arm. You said Lunas need to face threats head-on. That the pack needs to see me as strong, not someone who cowers while others fight for her. She met his fierce gaze without flinching. Let me stand beside you. Not behind you. Beside you. For a moment she thought he'd argue. Then something shifted in his expression. Acceptance mixed with pride and terror. You stay within arm's reach at all times, he commanded. And if I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Understood. He turned to Serena. Alert the pack. Full defensive positions around the house. And find Cordelia. I want to know who could have leaked information to rogues. His tone turned deadly. Because there's a traitor in our pack, and they just made a fatal mistake. As they ran back through the forest, Lena's mind raced. Damien had been suspiciously aggressive during training. He'd pushed her psychologically, tried to make Kieran lose control. And now, the night before her trials, rogues just happened to attack? The pieces fit too neatly to be coincidence. When the pack house came into view, Lena saw wolves gathered in defensive formation, at least 50 of them, all in wolf form, growling at the tree line where shadows moved. The rogues. But what chilled her blood was the figure standing at the front of the rogue pack. Still in human form, his smile visible even in the darkness. Damien. Hello? Alpha, the beta called out cheerfully. Sorry for the interruption, but I'm afraid I can't wait until tomorrow to see if your human breaks. So I brought some friends to test her tonight instead. Kieran's growl was pure murder. You betray your pack, your oath, your alpha? I serve the pack, Damien countered. And the pack doesn't need a weak alpha bound to an even weaker human. So here's my offer. Give me the girl, let nature take its course, and when you fail to protect your mate, I'll challenge you properly. Quick, clean, no more suffering. His green eyes gleamed. Or refuse, and we'll take her anyway. Your choice. Kieran shifted, his massive black wolf stepping forward. But before he could lunge, Lena placed her hand on his head again, feeling the bond hum between them. I have a better offer, she called out, her voice carrying across the clearing. Let's make this interesting, Damien. You want to prove I'm too weak? Fine. I'll face 3 of your rogues, right here, right now. If I survive, you and your traitors leave Packlands forever. If I don't, she swallowed hard, then you can have what you want. Lena, no. Kieran started, but she sent everything she had through their bond. Trust me. Believe in me? Let me fight, Damien laughed. You're even more foolish than I thought. But sure, human. Let's see what you're made of. Chapter 8. Blood and Silver 3 rogues stepped forward from Damien's group, all male, all massive in their wolf forms, their eyes gleaming with predatory anticipation. They circled Lena slowly, testing, waiting to see if she'd panic and run. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Kieran shifted back to human form, his hand catching her arm. This is suicide, he hissed. Even trained warriors struggle against 3 rogues. You have no weapons, no training. I have you. Lena's eyes never left the circling wolves. Our bond. That's my weapon. She looked at him, willing him to understand. Trust works both ways, Kieran. You're asking me to trust you'll let me fight my own battles. Now I'm asking you to trust that I won't fight alone. Understanding dawned in his amber eyes, followed by something fierce and proud. He stepped back, though every line of his body screamed resistance. I'm right here, he said quietly. Use the bond. Take what you need from me. The first rogue lunged before Lena could second-guess herself. She dove sideways, feeling teeth snap inches from her shoulder. Her heart hammered, adrenaline flooding her system. But beneath her own fear, she felt something else. Kieran's strength flowing through the mark on her wrist, his battle instincts, his centuries of experience, his wolf's knowledge of how predators moved, thought, attacked. The second rogue came from her blind side, but she was already moving, rolling under its leap with grace she didn't possess on her own. The wolf's frustration rippled through the air as it crashed into empty space. Feel them, Kieran's voice whispered through the bond. Not with your eyes, with your instincts. Wolves telegraph their intentions through body language, through scent. Lena closed her eyes for a heartbeat, extending her senses the way she had during meditation. And there, she felt them. 3 points of aggression, of hunger, circling her like sharks scenting blood. The third rogue attacked from above, having climbed onto a low tree branch. This time Lena was ready. She spun, grabbed a fallen branch from the ground, and swung hard. The wood connected with the wolf's jaw with a satisfying crack. The rogue yelped, stumbling back. Around them the pack wolves howled. Approval or encouragement, Lena couldn't tell. But their energy fed into her through some channel she didn't understand, making her faster, stronger, more than human even if she'd never shift. The first 2 rogues attacked in tandem now, coordinating. One went high, one low, trying to trap her between them. Lena felt Kieran's alarm spike through the bond, felt his wolf straining to intervene, but she pushed back. Not yet. I've got this. She waited until the last possible second, then dropped flat to the ground. The 2 wolves collided above her with bone-jarring force. Before they could recover, Lena was up and running, not away, but toward the tree line where she'd spotted what she needed. Silver chains. The ones that had bound Serena during the ritual, discarded in the grass. Her hands screamed in protest as she grabbed them, the same burning cold she'd felt before. But she gritted her teeth and held on. When the third rogue came at her again, she was ready. She swung the chains like a whip, catching the wolf across the muzzle. The silver burned through fur and flesh, and the rogue's howl of pain echoed through the clearing. It retreated, whimpering, blood streaming from its snout. "Silver," someone in Damien's group shouted. "She can touch silver. That's impossible." But Lena didn't have time to process what that meant. The first 2 rogues had recovered, and were circling again, more cautious now, more calculating. They'd realized she wasn't easy prey. Beautiful. Kieran's voice was thick with emotion. "You're magnificent. But Lena, you're tiring. I can feel it through the bond." "End this." He was right. Her arms trembled, her breathing ragged. The silver chains felt like ice spreading through her veins. She couldn't maintain this much longer, so she did something crazy. She dropped the chains and opened her arms. "Come on then," she shouted at the 2 remaining rogues. "If you're going to kill me, do it. Or are you too cowardly to face an unarmed human?" The rogues exchanged glances, then charged together. At the same moment, Lena threw everything she had down the bond, not taking from Kieran this time, but giving. Her determination, her trust, her absolute certainty that she was exactly where she needed to be. The mark on her wrist exploded with silver light. The light blasted outward in a wave that sent both rogues tumbling backward. They yelped, scrambling to their feet, staring at Lena with what could only be described as fear. Around the clearing, wolves on both sides had gone completely still. "What are you?" one of the rogues whispered in a half-shifted voice that was barely comprehensible. "I'm the Luna," Lena said, her voice ringing with authority she didn't know she possessed. "And you're trespassing on my territory." The 2 rogues didn't wait for permission. They turned and bolted into the forest, their injured companion limping after them. Half of Damien's rogue pack followed suit, clearly unwilling to face whatever power Lena had just displayed. Damien stood frozen, his confident smile finally cracking. "That's not possible. Humans can't channel pack magic. They can't. Apparently I can." Lena turned to face him, and despite her exhaustion, she felt invincible. "Now, are you going to honor our agreement and leave? Or do I need to demonstrate what else I'm capable of?" She had no idea what else she was capable of, but Damien didn't need to know that. The Beta's face twisted with rage and disbelief. For a moment, Lena thought he might attack anyway, pack law be damned. But then Marcus's voice rang out from the pack house steps. The challenge was met and won. "Damien, son of Helena, you have violated sacred law by consorting with rogues against pack interests. You are hereby banished from these lands. If you return, you will be executed on sight." "This isn't over," Damien snarled, backing toward the tree line. "That curse will break you, Kieran, and when it does, I'll be waiting." His eyes found Lena. "Enjoy your victory, human. It won't last." Then he was gone, melting into the forest with his remaining followers. The silence that followed was deafening. Lena stood in the center of the clearing, silver chains at her feet, the mark on her wrist still glowing faintly. Every eye was on her. pack wolves assessing this human who'd just done the impossible. Then Kieran was there, pulling her against his chest, his whole body shaking. "Never," he breathed into her hair. "Never do anything like that again." "Can't promise that." Lena's legs finally gave out, but Kieran caught her, lifting her easily into his arms. "How'd I do?" "You channeled pure pack magic through a mate bond that isn't even complete yet. You touched Silver without protection and didn't lose your hands. You faced down 3 rogues with nothing but borrowed instincts and sheer audacity." He looked down at her, and his eyes were blazing with emotion. "You were perfect. Does this mean I passed the trials?" she asked hopefully. "Because I'm not sure I can do that again tomorrow." Marcus approached, and to Lena's shock, the elder wolf bowed his head. "The trials are unnecessary. You've proven yourself in ways far more meaningful than any ritual test could measure." He looked at the gathered pack. "All in favor of acknowledging Lena Thorne as our Luna?" The response was immediate, dozens of wolves howling their approval, the sound building into a chorus that made Lena's chest tight with unexpected emotion. "All opposed?" Marcus asked. Victoria stepped forward, and Lena's heart sank. But the sharp-featured woman surprised her by inclining her head respectfully. "I was wrong about you. Any wolf or human who can wield pack magic deserves our respect." She paused. "And our protection. You'll need training, proper training, if you're to survive in our world." "I volunteer to teach you. Thank you," Lena managed. Cordelia appeared beside them, her expression troubled despite the victory. "Alpha, we need to discuss what just happened. Humans don't channel pack magic. They physically can't. Their bodies aren't built for it. The fact that Lena could means..." She looked at Lena with something like awe. "There's something in her bloodline. Something that shouldn't exist." "What are you saying?" Kieran asked. "I'm saying your mate isn't fully human." Cordelia touched Lena's wrist where the mark glowed. Somewhere in her ancestry there's wolf blood. Dormant, but there. The mate bond awakened it. She smiled. "Which means, Alpha, that completing the bond won't just break your curse. It might trigger something incredible in her as well." Lena's mind reeled. "Wolf blood? In her family? But that would mean..." "Maya," she whispered. "If I have it, she might have too." "Is that why she could see your world? Why she ran into the forest that night?" Cordelia's expression turned grave. "Possibly. If her wolf blood was awakening and she didn't understand what was happening." She trailed off, but the implication was clear. Maya might have been drawn to the pack, not by accident, but by instinct. By blood calling to blood. Kieran pulled Lena closer. "We'll figure this out, together. But right now, you need rest. You just survived something that should have killed you, and we still have..." He stopped, realization dawning. "We don't have the trials tomorrow, which means nothing's stopping us from completing the mate bond." Heat flooded Lena's face. Oh, he echoed, his voice dropping an octave. "But only if you're ready. Only if you're certain. Because once that bond is complete, Lena, there's no going back. You'll be tied to me, to this pack, to this world forever." She looked up at him. This Alpha King who'd trusted her to fight, who'd given her his strength when she needed it, who carried guilt and responsibility and hope in equal measure. Then she looked at the wolves gathered around them, at Serena smiling tearfully, at Victoria nodding with newfound respect, at Marcus and Cordelia watching with approval. This was her pack now. Her family. Her future. "I'm certain," she said clearly. "I choose this. I choose you." Kieran's smile could have lit the entire forest. "Then let's go home, Luna. We have a bond to complete." Chapter 9. The claiming Kieran carried Lena through the pack house, past wolves who bowed their heads in respect, up a winding staircase to the 3rd floor. His private quarters, she realized, as he shouldered open a heavy oak door. The room was masculine and surprisingly simple. A massive bed with dark linens, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the forest, bookshelves crammed with volumes that ranged from ancient texts to modern thrillers. But what caught Lena's attention was the balcony beyond the windows, where moonlight pooled like liquid silver. "You can still change your mind," Kieran said softly, setting her on her feet. "What happened tonight doesn't obligate you to." Lena silenced him with a kiss. When she pulled back, his eyes had darkened to amber fire. I'm not here out of obligation. I'm here because when I think about my future, you're in every version of it. He cupped her face with trembling hands. I need you to understand what completing the bond means. It's not just physical, Lena. Our souls will intertwine. You'll feel my emotions as if they're your own. My wolf will recognize you as pack, as mate, as the other half of itself. His thumb traced her jaw. And when you're in danger, I'll know. When you're in pain, I'll feel it. We'll be bound so tightly that losing you would break something fundamental in me. Good, she whispered, because I'm not planning on going anywhere. The kiss that followed was different from the others, deeper, more urgent, laced with the promise of what was coming. Kieran's hand slid into her hair, while Lena's fingers found the hem of his shirt, tugging upward. He broke the kiss long enough to pull it over his head, revealing a torso marked with scars that told stories of battles fought and survived. Lena traced the worst of them, the one on his ribs from his father's attack. Does it still hurt? Not when you touch me. His voice was rough. Nothing hurts when you touch me. She stood on her toes to press a kiss to the scar, feeling his sharp intake of breath. His hands found the zipper of her jacket, sliding it down and off her shoulders. Then her sweater, her shirt, each piece of clothing removed with reverence until she stood before him in just her jeans and bra. You're shaking, he observed. So are you. He smiled, but it was tinged with vulnerability. I've never done this. The bond, I mean. I've been with women before, but never... He stopped, searching for words. Never someone who mattered this much. Never knowing that what happens next will change everything. Lena took his hand, pressing it against her racing heart. Then we'll figure it out together. No expectations, no pressure. Just us. He pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. You make it sound so simple. Maybe it is. She kissed him softly. Maybe all the complicated parts, the magic, the curse, the pack politics, don't matter as much as this. You and me, choosing each other. When did you get so wise? He murmured against her lips. About 5 minutes ago. I'm winging it. His laugh was low and genuine, some of the tension easing from his shoulders. Then he was kissing her again, walking her backward toward the bed. They tumbled onto it together, and Lena felt the mate bond humming between them, growing stronger with each touch, each whispered word. Kieran's hand slid up her side, and everywhere he touched, the mark on her wrist pulsed in response. The bond wants to complete, he breathed. It's pulling so hard I can barely think straight. Then stop thinking. Lena arched into him. Feel instead. What followed was a dance of discovery, learning each other's bodies, finding what made the other gasp or moan or shudder. Kieran was patient despite the hunger burning in his eyes, taking his time to worship every inch of her skin. And Lena gave as good as she got, tracing the lines of his muscles, mapping his scars with her lips, drawing sounds from him that were more wolf than man. When they finally came together, the mate bond snapped into place with the force of a lightning strike. Lena cried out, not from pain, but from the overwhelming rush of sensation. Kieran's emotions flooding into her, his wolf's joy at finally finding its mate, his human heart's desperate love for this woman who'd walked into his life and turned it upside down in the best possible way. And beneath it all, she felt the curse breaking. The binding that had held Kieran's wolf captive for 8 years shattered like glass, and suddenly he was whole, complete. His wolf and human nature merged seamlessly, no longer strangers sharing space, but unified in their devotion to her. Kieran gasped against her neck, his entire body shaking. Lena, oh gods, Lena, I can feel it. The wolf is free. We're free. But that wasn't all. Lena felt something awakening in herself too. That dormant wolf blood Cordelia had mentioned stirring to life. Not enough to shift, not yet, but enough to sense the pack bonds surrounding her like a web of light. Enough to feel the forest as a living entity. The moon as a guiding presence. The wild magic that thrummed through every tree and stone and wolf. I feel them, she whispered in wonder. The pack, all of them. Their hearts, their hopes, their fears. It's like being part of something infinite. Kieran pulled back to look at her, and his eyes were glowing pure gold. his wolf shining through, no longer caged. "You're not just Luna now. You're Pack, truly Pack." He kissed her with renewed passion. "Mine, forever mine." "Yours," she agreed. "And you're mine." They made love again, slower this time, savoring each moment now that the desperate urgency had eased. And as they moved together, Lena felt the bond settling into place, a permanent connection that would last as long as they both lived. When they finally lay tangled together in the aftermath, Kieran traced idle patterns on her bare shoulder. "I can feel your contentment," he said with wonder. "Your happiness. It's like sunshine in my chest. I can feel your peace." Lena pressed a kiss to his collarbone. "You've been carrying tension for so long, but right now, you're completely relaxed. Because I have everything I need right here." He tightened his arms around her. "My mate, my Luna, my salvation." "No pressure, though," Lena teased. He laughed, the sound rich and free. "I'm serious. Before you, I was half a person leading through sheer stubbornness. Now," he shifted, and for the first time since she'd met him, the transformation was effortless. His wolf form appeared for just a moment, massive and midnight black, with those same amber eyes, before he shifted back. "Now I'm whole, and it's because of you." Lena sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. Cordelia said, "Completing the bond might trigger something in me too. Do you think I'll be able to shift someday?" "I don't know." Kieran tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "But whatever happens, we'll face it together. If you shift, I'll teach you everything. If you don't, you're still the strongest Luna this pack has ever had." "Even Victoria thinks so," Lena said with a smile. "That was unexpected. Victoria respects strength above all else. You proved yourself in ways she couldn't deny." His expression grew serious. "But Lena, about Damien, he's not done. Banished wolves often join rogue packs, and with his knowledge of our territory, our defenses, he'll be back," Lena finished. "I know. I felt his rage tonight through the pack bonds. He's humiliated and vengeful. Which is why we need to strengthen the pack, shore up our alliances." Kieran sat up beside her. "There are other packs in the region, some friendly, some neutral, some openly hostile. As Luna, you'll help negotiate with them, prove that a human mate doesn't make us weak." "No pressure, though," Lena echoed his earlier words, making him smile. "We have time, and we have each other." He pulled her back down into his arms. "For tonight, let's just be Kieran and Lena, not Alpha and Luna. Just two people who found each other against impossible odds." Lena snuggled into his warmth, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her cheek. Through their bond, she sensed his wolf's contentment, a low, rumbling satisfaction that echoed her own. But beneath that contentment, she also felt a whisper of unease. Something he hadn't told her, a secret lurking at the edges of his consciousness. "Kieran?" she asked quietly. "What aren't you telling me?" He stiffened almost imperceptibly. "What do you mean?" "I can feel it through the bond. Something you're worried about. Something to do with..." She concentrated, following the thread of his anxiety. "With my wolf blood? With what might happen when it fully awakens?" He was silent for a long moment. Then, "Cordelia pulled me aside while you were being checked by the healers. She said that dormant wolf blood awakening in an adult is extremely rare. And when it does happen, the transformation can be difficult, painful. Sometimes the human body rejects the change entirely." Lena's stomach dropped. "You mean it could kill me? I won't let that happen." His arms tightened protectively. "But yes, there's risk. That's why Cordelia wants to monitor you closely over the next few weeks. Watch for signs of the awakening." He kissed the top of her head. "I'm sorry. I should have told you before we completed the bond. Given you all the information." "Stop." Lena pushed up to look at him. "I chose this with my eyes open. Maybe I didn't know every detail, but I knew there would be risks. There always are when you love someone." His breath caught. Love? She'd said it without thinking. But now that the word hung between them, she realized it was true. Completely terrifyingly true. "Yes, love. I know it's fast, I know it's crazy, but Kieran, I love you. The bond might have brought us together, but what I feel goes beyond magic. I love you too." The words seemed torn from somewhere deep inside him. "From the moment you stepped into that ritual circle, shouting at us to stop, willing to fight for a stranger. I think part of me knew. My wolf certainly did. They kissed, soft and sweet, sealing the confession, and for that moment, surrounded by moonlight and forest songs and the warmth of each other's arms, the future's dangers seemed very far away. Chapter 10. The awakening Lena woke to sunlight streaming through the windows, and Kieran's arm draped possessively across her waist. For a moment, she simply lay there, savoring the warmth of his body against hers, the steady rhythm of his breathing. Through their bond, she felt his dreams, chasing through moonlit forests, running with the pack, always circling back to her. Then pain lanced through her spine. She gasped, going rigid, and Kieran was instantly awake, his eyes snapping open with alarm. "Lena, what's wrong?" "I don't—" Another wave of pain cut off her words, this time radiating from her core outward. It felt like her bones were trying to rearrange themselves, her muscles stretching beyond their limits. "Cordelia!" Kieran roared, even as he pulled Lena against him. "It's starting. The awakening? It's happening too fast." The door burst open and the elder wolf rushed in, barely pausing at their state of undress. She pressed her hand to Lena's forehead, her expression grave. "Her temperature is spiking. The wolf blood is trying to assert itself, but her human body is fighting back." She looked at Kieran. "You need to help her shift. Guide her through the bond. Show her wolf the way. She's not ready. None of us are ever ready for our first shift." Cordelia's tone was sharp, but if she doesn't shift soon, the conflicting energies will tear her apart from the inside. Lena heard their words through a haze of agony. Every nerve ending felt like it was on fire, and beneath her skin, something wild and desperate was clawing to get out. "Kieran," she managed through gritted teeth. "Help me." He pulled her onto his lap, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "I've got you. Focus on my voice, on our bond." His lips pressed against her ear. "Feel for your wolf, Lena. She's there, I can sense her. She's scared and confused, but she's yours. Call to her. I don't know how—" Another spasm of pain cut her off, and she felt something crack inside her chest. Not bone, but the last barrier between her human consciousness and the wolf lurking beneath. And suddenly, she could feel it. Her, a presence in her mind that was both familiar and completely alien. A wolf who carried Maya's laugh in her howl, who remembered running through these forests in dreams Lena had forgotten, who recognized Kieran's wolf as mate and pack and home. "Hello," Lena thought tentatively. The wolf's response was a surge of joy and relief so powerful it brought tears to Lena's eyes. Finally. Been waiting, sleeping, dreaming, but now awake. "I can hear her," Lena breathed. "My wolf. She's been there all along, just sleeping." "Good." Kieran's voice was tight with barely controlled fear. "Now you need to let her out. I know it's terrifying, but you have to surrender control. Let the shift take you. What if I can't shift back?" "You will." "I'll make sure of it." He kissed her temple. "I won't let you get lost, Lena. I promise." She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this would work. But the pain was intensifying, and she could feel her wolf's panic rising. The shift wanted to happen, needed to happen, but some part of Lena was holding back, terrified of losing herself completely. Then she felt it. Kieran's wolf pushing through their bond, reaching for hers. "Not alone," his wolf's consciousness whispered. "Shift together. I show you." And just like that, the fear eased. Lena closed her eyes and let go. The shift was nothing like she'd imagined. Her bones didn't break. They flowed, reshaping themselves with a sensation that was more strange than painful. Her skin rippled, fur erupting in waves of silver white that gleamed in the morning light. Her senses exploded outward. Suddenly she could smell everything. Kieran's scent of pine and smoke. Cordelia's herbal tea from 3 rooms away, the pack members gathering outside the door, curious and concerned. When the shift completed, Lena stood on 4 legs that felt both foreign and perfectly right. She looked down at herself. Sleek silver fur with white markings on her chest and paws. Smaller than Kieran's massive black wolf, but built for speed rather than power. Beautiful. Kieran's voice echoed in her mind, clearer now than ever before. Absolutely beautiful. Lena turned to find his wolf beside her, amber eyes glowing with pride and love. She took an experimental step, stumbling slightly, and his wolf pressed against her side, steadying her. Easy. Takes practice. You're doing perfect. Cordelia laughed with delight. A silver wolf. I haven't seen one in 200 years. Lena, do you know how rare you are? Lena tried to respond, but all that came out was a questioning whine. You can't speak yet in this form, Cordelia explained. That takes time and practice. But you can communicate through the pack bonds, mind to mind. She moved closer, fearless. The silver wolves were said to be bridges between worlds. Part human empathy, part wolf instinct. They could sense emotions, heal bonds, unite fractured packs. Her eyes gleamed with tears. You're not just Luna, child. You're something our legends spoke of. A symbol of hope. Too much responsibility, Lena thought, and was surprised when both Kieran and Cordelia laughed. She says you're giving her too much responsibility, Kieran translated, shifting back to human form. He knelt beside her wolf, running his hands through her fur. How do you feel? Any pain? Lena considered. The agony from before had completely vanished, replaced by a sense of rightness she'd never experienced. Her wolf settled contentedly, pleased to finally be free after so many years dormant. Good, she sent through the bond. Feel good. Strong. Then let's see if you can shift back. Kieran's tone was gentle. It's easier than the first shift, I promise. Just reach for your human form the way you reached for your wolf before. Lena tried, but nothing happened. She felt her human consciousness, knew it was there, but couldn't figure out how to reverse the transformation. Panic fluttered in her chest. Breathe, Kieran soothed. Don't force it. The shift responds to emotion, to intent. Think about being human, about your hands, your voice, your ability to touch me the way you did last night. That last part did it. Lena focused on the memory of touching Kieran's face, of feeling his skin beneath her fingertips, of kissing him with human lips. The shift rippled through her, and suddenly she was kneeling on the floor, naked and trembling but blessedly human. I did it, she gasped. I actually shifted and came back. You were magnificent. Kieran wrapped a blanket around her, pulling her close. A natural, just like I knew you'd be. How did Maya not know? Lena asked, looking at Cordelia. If we both carried wolf blood, why didn't she shift? Cordelia's expression turned sad. The wolf blood was more dormant in her. It would have taken a mate bond to fully awaken it, and she died before finding hers. She paused. But Lena, there's something you should know. When you shifted, I felt your wolf's essence. She carries memories, not just yours but Maya's too. Somehow your sister's spirit is woven into your wolf. Lena's breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying that when you run as wolf, part of Maya runs with you. She's not gone, not entirely. She lives on through you, through your wolf, through the pack she never got to join. Cordelia smiled gently. Maybe that's why fate brought you here. Not just to save Kieran, but to give your sister the pack family she always sensed she needed. Tears streamed down Lena's face. But they were healing tears. Through the bond, she felt Kieran's arms tighten around her, felt his wolf's comforting presence, and deeper still, she felt something else, a whisper of laughter that sounded achingly familiar. Thank you, Maya's voice seemed to say, for finishing what I started, for finding where we belong. A howl rose from outside, wolves gathering, sensing something momentous had occurred. More voices joined until the entire pack sang together, welcoming their Luna not just as Alpha's mate, but as one of their own. Kieran helped Lena to her feet, and together they walked to the balcony. Below, dozens of wolves in both human and animal form looked up at them, their faces filled with hope and acceptance. They're waiting for you to howl with them, Kieran murmured, to acknowledge your place in the pack. I don't know if I can shift again so soon. You don't have to. You can howl in human form too. He demonstrated, his head tilting back, a sound both human and wolf pouring from his throat. Lena took a breath and tried. Her first attempt was weak, uncertain, but then she felt the pack bonds thrumming through her, felt dozens of wolves lending her their strength. Her second howl was stronger, clearer, and when it joined Kieran's, the sound resonated through the forest like a proclamation. The Luna had awakened. The pack was whole, and somewhere in the morning light, Lena swore she heard Maya howling too, finally free, finally home. But even in this moment of triumph, Lena felt a shadow at the edge of her awareness. Through the pack bonds, she sensed movement in the forest, rogues watching, waiting. And at the center of that darkness, Damien's presence burned with hatred and determination. The battle for the pack's future wasn't over. It had only just begun.